My husband Timothy got sick and had to be hospitalized. Our granddaughter Tiffany approached Timothy with a gentle smile and took something out of the bag she was holding. "Grandpa, get well soon." It was a craft Tiffany had made. Timothy received it with a surprised look, and the next moment he tore it up as if he had realized something. "Wait! What are you doing, Timothy? Don't trample on Tiffany's feelings." But Timothy's eyes were cold. "Michelle, you don't get it." Prompted by Timothy, I also took the craft in my hands. Upon closer inspection, the well-made craft had a message that read, "I want to go shopping again when you get better, Grandpa." As I looked at the message, I remembered something that had happened just the other day. "I'm not good at making crafts," Tiffany had indeed said. In the heavy air, we all fell silent. "Tonight's dinner is gratin and vegetable soup." "Oh, that sounds like the wine will go down well. Please drink in moderation." A casual conversation between husband and wife that takes place every evening. I am Michelle, married to Timothy for 35 years. Timothy runs a construction company, and our life has been smooth sailing. "Dad, I actually got some good alcohol from a business partner today," whispered our second son, Brian, to Timothy. Brian had spent several years abroad, saying he wanted to study architecture during his college days, but now he lives with us. "That's my son. Let's have some right away." "Oh, Brian, don't spoil Dad too much." "Of course, I know." Brian was fascinated by the buildings Timothy worked on as a child, studied hard to become an architect, and achieved his dream of obtaining the necessary qualifications. Not only in his studies, but Brian was also popular and well-liked even when he was still a student. Timothy appreciated Brian's diligence and popularity and decided to make him the successor to the company. Brian has always been good at capturing people's hearts. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I smiled at Brian's shy smile and glanced at my mobile phone to see a text notification. The text was from our eldest son, David, saying, "I can't get long holidays, so I won't be able to come home for a while." He must be busy as usual. David studied for 4 years at university to become a physiotherapist, obtained his qualification, and started living alone immediately after graduation. Before Brian came to live with us, David would come home every time he had a long holiday. "I want to eat your cooking, so I'm coming home, Mom." Seeing David happily eating a lot of food was a joy for me. However, a new wind blew in the 3rd year of David living away from us. When I served David dinner during one of his usual visits home, he unusually left some food behind. "Thanks for the meal. You usually eat more. Are you feeling okay?" David hesitated a bit before responding. "I fell in love at first sight with a woman I met at a party. I've been thinking about her so much I can't sleep at night." Listening to the conversation, Timothy looked happy. "She's really beautiful. Since she was the most approached by men, I need to step up my game." "You'll be fine, David." Timothy placed his hand on David's shoulder and said encouragingly, "Thank you." After receiving encouragement from Timothy, David went back home and started dating Heather a month later. Their relationship seemed to be going well, and a year later, they decided to get married. I want the wedding to be grand since it's once in a lifetime. Along with the marriage announcement, Timothy called me for advice. "What kind of wedding do you want?" "Heather wants to do it in Hawaii." "Hawaii?" I was surprised by the unexpected answer and raised my voice. If I said I'm not good with planes, she got really upset and said, "Then let's have it at the biggest hotel in the city center." "Okay, I'll talk to Timothy about it." When I told Timothy, he was happy to have it at a famous hotel in the city center. "With everything coming up, it's going to cost a bit. I'll cover the wedding expenses." Thus, David and Heather's wedding was set to be a grand affair. Right before the wedding, when I first met Heather, she was indeed incredibly beautiful, and her constant smile was memorable. "It's nice to meet you. Thank you for covering the wedding expenses." Heather greeted us like that. "I'm happy to see you guys looking so happy together. Please take good care of David." "Yes." Seeing Heather respond so brightly, I thought we should build a good relationship. After the wedding went off without a hitch, David and Heather decided to build a house about 2 hours away from ours and started their new life. Initially, David seemed like he would come back to our house every vacation as before. Heather prefers to relax at home during vacations, so she's not keen on coming. He conveyed that through a text. I figured they wanted to spend time together as newlyweds. Around that time, Brian had returned home after getting his architect's license and started living with us again. A year later, when David and Heather had a daughter, they visited our house for the first time. She looks like Heather and is so cute. David and Heather introduced their daughter Tiffany with gentle smiles. Work keeps us busy. It's reassuring to have you guys nearby. We'll help as much as we can, so don't hesitate to ask if you're in trouble. Brian also nodded in agreement with our words. Thank you. I'm embarrassed to say I have a bit of a germ phobia and can't stay long in other people's houses, so I won't be able to visit so often. I see. We'd love for you to visit occasionally, but we won't push you. Thank you. After that, as Heather declared, she never showed her face at our house again. But David started calling us often instead. Mom, I need your help. We always welcomed David, who started conversations like this as if it were a catchphrase. We didn't interfere with their parenting, but we understood that David and Heather were busy, and spending time with Tiffany became our joy. Time flew by, and before we knew it, Tiffany was 9 years old and had grown close to us. On a day when we took Tiffany shopping in place of the busy David and Heather at the mall, Tiffany's eyes sparkled with interest in various things. Grandpa, what's that? Looking at a vendor selling balloons with a friendly smile, Tiffany asked curiously. That's called a balloon. It has air inside, and if you don't hold it tightly, it will fly away into the sky. Saying so, Timothy bought a balloon and handed it to Tiffany. Wow, it's so light. Tiffany danced around happily, laughing. Amazing, right? Grandpa, thank you. After that, Timothy kept buying things that caught Tiffany's interest. A few days after a delighted Tiffany went home, we received another call from David. I might be late again today. David sounded apologetic, but we told him not to worry as we had already found several places where Tiffany could play. This park is spacious, so you can play a lot here. When Tiffany came to our house, we all went to the park, and Brian proudly spread his arms wide. Yay! I want to ride the swing. All right, let's have a swing contest. Brian doted on Tiffany, playing with her to his heart's content as if she were his own daughter. Tiffany enjoyed running around, so it seemed she could have a lot of fun even at the park. On such a day when we were spending time with Tiffany every week, Timothy unusually started coughing nonstop from the morning and seemed to be in pain. Timothy, are you okay? Yeah, it must be the dry air. Timothy tried to brush it off as nothing, but no matter how much water he drank or how many candies he sucked on, the coughing didn't subside. Dad, I'll take you to the hospital. I'm fine. Despite Timothy's bravado, his cough only got worse. Finally, he collapsed, coughing violently and spitting out blood. Timothy! Dad! Brian immediately rushed to Timothy, desperately calling out to him, but Timothy seemed unconscious and did not respond. Panicking, I called an ambulance, and Timothy was taken to the hospital with Brian and I following behind. Upon arrival at the hospital and after receiving immediate treatment, fortunately, Timothy was not diagnosed with a serious illness and was told he could be discharged in a few days. However, Timothy needed to rest for a while. I went back home once to gather the necessities for his hospital stay and also informed David about it. Don't push yourself too hard. Tearing up, I held Timothy's hand. Yeah, I'll be careful. You'll get better soon, Dad. Relieved that Timothy could respond properly, we decided to return home. A few days later, Tiffany came to visit with David. Dad, are you okay? Yeah, you must be busy. Thanks for coming all the way down here. I'm relieved to see you're doing better than I thought. While David and Timothy spoke in a calm atmosphere, Tiffany unusually remained silent. Tiffany, say hello to Grandpa. Usually, Tiffany would greet us with a flower-like smile the moment she saw us, but even when prompted by David, she wore a stern expression. Thinking that Tiffany might be nervous because it was her first time in a hospital, I cheerfully said to her, Tiffany, you're wearing a lovely dress today. Tiffany was wearing a dress I had given her as a Christmas present. Thank you. Seemingly distracted by the compliment on her dress, her stern expression finally faded. Then Tiffany smiled, took a step towards Timothy, and took something out of the bag she was holding. Grandpa, get well soon. It was a craft Tiffany had made. Timothy received it with a surprised look, and the next moment, he tore it up as if he had realized something. What? Wait, Timothy, what are you doing? Don't trample on Tiffany's feelings. However, Timothy's eyes were cold. Michelle, don't you get it? Prompted by Timothy, and I also took the craft in my hands. Upon closer inspection, the well-made craft had a message that read, I want to go shopping again when you get better, Grandpa. It wasn't made by Tiffany. In the chilly and heavy air, we all fell silent. While looking at the handwriting on the message, I remembered something that had happened just the other day. On a day reported by the news to have record-breaking cold weather, David called as usual. Sorry, Tiffany's come down with a fever, and neither Heather nor I can come back right away. That's tough. I'll come pick her up right away. Tiffany, who had caught a cold, was left in our care and had been bedridden for a while. Get well soon. While taking care of her meals and clothing, I spent my free time making crafts for kids. Gradually, Tiffany, who had been semi-conscious, began to recover. Grandma? Tiffany, finally able to speak, blinked a few times and then looked at the craft I had made. What's that? This is a craft I made hoping you'd get better from your illness. That's amazing. I'm not good at making crafts. Oh, is that so? Let's do it together when you're feeling better. Yeah, Grandma, thank you. Tiffany had indeed said that. Not much time had passed since that day, and it was only last week that she had recovered enough to move around. Even if she had learned to make it by researching, the craft in front of us now was far better made than the one I had created. Not only that, but while the handwriting on the message resembled it, it was subtly different from the letters I received from Tiffany. Tiffany, it's okay. You can tell me who prepared this. In response to Timothy's question, Tiffany only bit her lip and shook her head. Tiffany. As Tiffany remained silent no matter how much we asked, Timothy sighed lightly and turned to David. David, all the receipts for the things I've bought Tiffany are kept at home. What? What's wrong all of a sudden? David, still clueless, looked at Timothy with a puzzled expression. Check the house for the items on the receipts when you get back. If they're not there, check the security cameras. What? In fact, we had been feeling something was off with Tiffany for a few months. Usually keen on new discoveries and always playing wholeheartedly at the park, her behavior gradually changed. On a pleasantly sunny day, when we planned to take Tiffany to the park as usual, Grandpa, Tiffany said, "The park is boring." We were surprised because Tiffany had never been reluctant to go to the park before. Tiffany, are you feeling unwell? I asked. No, I just want a new toy. What about the play kitchen we got you last time? I inquired. That's not fun anymore. Tiffany, who had never been whiny or demanding before, made us think something was really up. I see. Maybe Tiffany has outgrown it, or it's not suitable for her age. Initially, Timothy, facing Tiffany's first act of whimsy, indulgently bought her a new toy. However, Tiffany started to complain more frequently after that. Grandpa, I already finished that game you got me last time. Really? But it's only been a week. I think you might be playing too many games. We usually didn't comment on David's parenting style, but this made us question it. Did you enjoy the game that much? Yes. All right then, Tiffany. Pick whatever you want next. Timothy, indulgent with Tiffany, bought her a new game. Even then, however, the games Tiffany chose were often not age-appropriate, or were limited edition and highly valued. Tiffany, how is the game from last time? Timothy asked with a stern face. Tiffany slowly shook her head. What's wrong? This isn't like you. Tiffany, I want that one next. Ignoring Timothy's words, Tiffany made another request. Was it fun? You must have felt something. Tiffany remained silent, just nodding slightly. If you can't share your thoughts, I won't buy a new game. It was fun, Tiffany seemingly panicked, finally responded, making even Timothy sigh. Can you promise Grandpa not to play games too much? Yes, I promise. While Timothy continued to buy Tiffany new games, he grew suspicious of her behavior and kept the receipts. Even as Tiffany requested more games, toys, and clothes, she rarely shared her thoughts on them. Timothy, not wanting to see Tiffany sad but also not wanting to spoil her, gradually reduced the frequency of his purchases. Afterwards, I handed David a stack of receipts, leading to an unexpectedly shocking revelation. Dad, Mom, I've never seen any of these items. On the day Timothy was discharged from the hospital safely, David and Tiffany came to our house and said that, "I knew it, but that's not all." David turned to Tiffany and fell silent. Tiffany said, "Want to play with me?" Brian quickly took Tiffany out of the room, showing quick thinking. David then pulled out his mobile phone and showed us footage he had recorded from the security cameras. "Okay." Tiffany asked Grandpa nicely. "Okay, yes." The footage contained Heather instructing Tiffany to ask for expensive items. What a thing to do! Timothy couldn't hide his shock. But there was more to the footage. You can't possibly play with all these things you got by yourself, right? This is something precious I got for my birthday. Be quiet. What's yours is mine. I won't let you have all the fun. The footage recorded. Heather taking away things bought for Tiffany, yelling at a confused Tiffany, "You should be grateful I'm taking care of you," as she forcefully took away clothes Tiffany had. "I didn't get anything today." "What? Because of you, I can't have fun. I'm sorry, you're not eating tonight." Ignoring Tiffany's apology, Heather left the scene. The footage continued, but it was too heartbreaking for me to watch any further. "How terrible to do such a thing to Tiffany," David said, shaking with sobs and tears streaming down his face, tinged with frustration and anger. "I've been failing as a dad, not noticing what was happening while I was away for work. There might be more she's hiding. Yeah, I'm planning to hire a detective." Following that, David apparently did hire a detective as he said he would. The investigation revealed that Heather was having an affair. Not only that, but it also became clear she had been selling the items she made us buy through Tiffany to spend time with her lover. "I want to have a serious talk with Heather. I'll have Brian look after Tiffany and would like Dad and Mom to be there too." David came to us with a determined look, to which Brian responded seriously. "Tiffany is safe with me. Of course, we have a lot we want to say to Heather as well. Thank you." Later, David entrusted Tiffany to Brian and brought Heather to us. "I have work tomorrow, so please make it quick." Heather was defiant and cold as David broached the main topic. "Heather, you've been hiding something, haven't you?" "What are you talking about?" Crossing her arms, Heather raised her eyebrows. "Everyone knows you've been cheating." "Heather, when did I ever cheat?" Heather pretended to be ignorant, so David presented her with the surveillance footage and photos obtained from the detective's investigation. "Here's the proof." When confronted with the evidence, Heather showed a moment of disturbance. "You're doubting me?" In this day and age, such things can be fabricated. Heather's desperate excuse was met with David lining up evidence after evidence. "I don't have the time to fabricate this much evidence, just admit it already." The evidence piled up on the table was overwhelming. Glaring at the evidence resentfully, Heather finally opened her mouth. "I thought marrying the son of a big construction company would let me live in luxury." Heather finally spilled her true feelings. "But once we got married, I was told Brian was going to be the successor. I told you from the beginning I wasn't going into construction, so you can't blame me for your assumptions." "That's not all. I was hoping to live with you in your parents' home in a prime location, but because of Brian, I couldn't." Heather had been planning to move in with us upon marrying David, especially since Brian was abroad at the time. I had my sights set on it. Hearing Heather mutter this left us speechless with disbelief. Dad, Mom, and Brian have supported my dreams, allowing me to leave my parents' house and do as I please. "You don't make enough money." Glaring at David, Heather raised her voice. "I couldn't stand Tiffany getting more allowance and toys than me." She had been taking the allowance we gave Tiffany and selling the toys for money to spend with her lover. I thought I'd live a carefree life, but I've been made to feel so miserable, and my dissatisfaction exploded. Heather spoke as if David was to blame, prompting him to sigh deeply. You spend too much. We could live comfortably without the wasteful spending. I can't forgive having to have our wedding in such a desolate place when I wanted it in Hawaii. Desolate? It's the biggest wedding venue in the States. It was clear from her words that Heather had been after David's money from the start. Timothy frowned deeply, holding his head in his hands. I couldn't stand it any longer. The toys for Tiffany have also decreased recently. It's clear they weren't for Tiffany's sake. I wasn't foolish enough to keep buying them. Timothy clenched his fists tightly, struggling to contain his anger at Heather for exploiting their child for luxury. I had no choice but to pretend Tiffany made them to please Timothy, but that backfired. Don't joke around. Dad isn't here to provide money for you. David stood up, anger evident in his demeanor as he faced Heather. What you did is purely selfish. Heather appeared frightened by David's rare outburst. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to divorce you. Seeing David's intensity, I instinctively spoke up, realizing things were getting out of hand. What Heather did is inexcusable. Exactly. Although I understand how you feel, David, I urged him to sit down before continuing. Even if Heather's ties with us are cut, she is still Tiffany's mom. I spoke to Heather in a lecturing tone. Despite being scolded and having things taken from her, Tiffany never mentioned Heather's name. It must have been hard. Heather seemed to take my words to heart, as if waking up from a trance after hearing David's shouting. Think about Tiffany's feelings. Yes, I imagine Tiffany must have felt lonely seeing Heather preoccupied with her own interests. Heather's strong demands and Tiffany's desperation for acknowledgement might have led to the escalation of her behavior. I chose not to express this directly, hoping Heather would come to realize it on her own. However, seeing Heather's sincere reaction made me decide to share something I had been hesitant to say. Also, Heather, and you too, David, there's something I want to tell you both. What is it about? The craft. I knew right away it wasn't Tiffany's work. I wouldn't have known. I'm sorry, scratching his head, David apologized. In fact, we often received letters from Tiffany. I spread out the letters from Tiffany we had collected on the table. When I grow up, I want to marry Grandpa. One of the letters caught my eye. I want to ride a balloon and play in the sky. Tiffany's letters conveyed her loneliness due to her parents' frequent absence. Tiffany, I'm sorry. I got too caught up in work. I'm truly sorry. As if Tiffany were present, both expressed their heartfelt apologies, and I felt they would surely make amends after our talk. Heather left our house much subdued compared to when she arrived. A few weeks later, David and Heather's divorce was finalized. However, we didn't seek any settlement from Heather, stipulating only that she be a good mom to Tiffany. Heather complained about the low salary, but it seems she finally found a job. A month after separating from Heather, David shared this news. Heather had quit her previous job post-divorce, having not worked properly since the marriage. Heather had been repeatedly rejected in interviews. Well, if she's feeling the difficulty of working, that's good to hear. David's sentiment reflected his own journey to achieve his dreams, warming my heart. I want to make more time to talk with Tiffany. Things will get tougher from here, so why not move closer to our home? Yeah, I'll do that. David quickly found a place near our home and moved in. After the move, we received a letter from Heather. I struggle to learn my job and get scolded every day, but I won't give up on being a good mom. She's having a tough time. That's what being an adult is all about. Timothy's words conveyed support and expectations for Heather. Once I save up, I want to buy toys for Tiffany. The letter ended with Heather's firm resolve. I hope she works hard and has a change of heart. With my words, Timothy nodded firmly. Since the move, Tiffany has been visiting our home more often. The reduced travel time made it easier for us to support David and Tiffany, who appeared to have a more stable life. However, Tiffany sometimes looked lonely, which worried me. It's inevitable, but Tiffany must be feeling the absence of her mom. While watching Tiffany play with Timothy and Brian, I shared my thoughts with David. Yeah, she sometimes talks about Mom in her sleep. Honestly, I feel guilty. We'll continue to support you, so just let us know what you need. David smiled. Mom, thank you. Please stay healthy. Though unspoken, I hoped that one day a reformed Heather would come to visit.